Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Caravan of Consciousness. Today is the 30th of March, I think it is here, and the 29th for Mike. And Mike is a returning guest. So today we've got episode 18 of Caravan of Consciousness. And I think Mike has been on the podcast, I think twice now. I forgot to look up the past episodes, but if you go back through the playlist on my channel, you'll be able to find the other talks that Mike and I have had. But yeah, welcome, Mike.
Well, thank you again, Amanda, for having me on the show. It's always a pleasure speaking with you.
Yeah, great. Thank you for being here. So today I want to touch a little bit on what's been happening with you with your music and things like that, and any other little bit of research that you've been doing, because I did watch you recently on the Sheep Farm Boys channel talking about the uh,
The
uh,
Doors?
the Doors. Yep, and also, yeah, what projects, what music projects you've got coming up, and then we might get into some other subjects to do with, the nature of the reality that we find ourselves in, spiritual concepts, things like that, and yeah, we'll go from there. So, first of all, what are you doing with your music at the moment? I hear you've got a new album. Have you already released the album yet, or about?
Yes, yes.
Yes, yep.
Yeah, the album's out. It's called Yesteryear. And what I did was to go back 40 to 45 years ago, Amanda, when I was a younger lad. And there were a lot of songs that I wrote and recorded back in the day with my brother. And we had a band back in the day. Max was our drummer. In another iteration of the band, my friend Jeff was there. He played keyboards. And so I went back and I brushed off those old songs. Now, some of them were recorded in 8-track, some in 16, some were on cassette, some were on 2-track reel to reel. And they sat on a shelf for a very, very long time. Now, some of the songs, they did make it onto tape back in the day because they were submitted to record labels and publishers, because at the time we were looking for a label deal or at the very least to get the songs published. But there were a lot of songs that were in the queue that we recorded, and some of them were almost completely done. Others were rough demos, so they were varying stages of completion. And I said to my brother going back about 2 years ago, I said, Paul, we really should go back and take a look at those old songs and re-record them. And he said, that's a great idea. So I started back in, I guess, February of March of 2024. And my goal was to get 10 of those songs recorded. And I've got more than that. I must have, there's got to be 2 dozen at least that are sitting on the shelf. But I selected 10 and I started the process of going through them, refiguring them out because you have to listen to them again. And, what did I do here? What did I do there? And I did that. And back in, I guess, February, it was last month. Yeah, I think it was last month. I released Yesteryear. It's actually 11 tracks. What I did was I have 10 tracks going back to the late 1990s, 1979. The one song, Vacation in Your Mind, is dated back to 79, and everything else was between 1980 and the early 90s. And my my dog, Charlie, who was in my life for over 14 years, he passed away in October of 2025 from old age. And he was my best friend, Amanda. I loved him to death. And I wrote a song as a tribute to him, and it's called Mr. Charles. And I decided to put Mr. Charles on the album. So the album has 11 tracks, 10 of which go back decades ago, and Mr. Charles was written recently. So I'm very happy with the album. I think it came out great. It truly was a labor of love, which is the name of my website, my music website. And I'm really, really happy that I went back and I redid those songs, because when you revisit it, it takes you back 40 years. I was a 20-year-old guy back in the day. I'm 67 today, and thinking to myself, we had a lot of energy, a lot of creativity, and we wrote some pretty good stuff. And so it's out, and And if anybody's interested, you can stream it, you can buy it. You just go to my website, laboroflovemusic.com, and you'll find it.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. And did you find that you had to change much in the way of the song structure, or did you keep it fairly as to how you first created the songs? Like were they
Yeah,
timeless sort of songs? They didn't come across as dated. Although you
uh,
can't really date like 70s and 80s music is the best anyway. So yeah.
well, some of the stuff I would say that it had an 80s flavor to it because, you're trying to write music that fits what's popular
Yep.
back in the day. So if you're going to send your songs out to record companies and publishers, you want to try to fit what's popular at that point in time. But what I did was I reimagined the songs, and what I mean by that is I wanted to retain obviously the original melodies and song structures, and but I was doing it now 40 something years later, and so I gave myself the liberty to record the songs as I felt like I wanted to record them today
Yep.
versus going back and saying, oh, I want to replicate that guitar sound or I want to do that type of drumming or that bass line. And don't get me wrong, there were moments when I retained that stuff as part of the reimagining process of the songs. But I just really wanted to clear the decks and say, okay, if I were doing those, so if I was writing those songs today, what would they sound like? And that's what I did. And in some of the songs, like is a song I wrote, Mama, Momma, Mama, No Small Wonder. The original version, the lead guitar was played with a phase shifter on it. And when I redid it, I redid the exact same lead with the phase shifter.
Yep.
So there were times when I actually did go back and say, no, I'm going to leave that as is. Another song, Camelot, the uh, the lead guitar in the middle of the song is note for note
Yep.
from the original. I didn't want to change it up. In other cases, I changed it up a little bit, not too much. But what I really wanted to do was to shake out the cobwebs and present a fresh set of songs as if they were written today
Yep.
with the original melody lines. So I really wanted to stay faithful to that. And so, I don't know, like I said, I'm very happy with it.
Yep.
Yeah.
And
And it was 22 months.
oh, okay, yep. When you did the original demos, did you record them in an actual studio? Did you pay for studio time or did you record in your own
Yes.
studio? Yep.
Yeah. So for the songs that wound up on tapes that we were sending out to record companies and publishers, those songs were all recorded in studios. Some of the songs were recorded at Workshop Recording Studios in Douglas and Queens. Back in the day, they were 16 track, and I think we were paying something like 75 to $100 an hour,
Yep.
which was a lot of money back in the
Yep.
day. When you go back to
Absolutely.
the late 70s, early 80s.
Yeah.
Other songs were recorded on 8 track. There's a guy that Dave Weiner. Dave passed away back in 2017, I think, and but Dave ran Multi-Sound Studios in Bayside, Queens, and also in Whitestone, Queens, in New York on Long Island. And I think that was maybe we were paying $40 an hour back in the day. But today it might not seem like a lot of money, but when you're in your 20s and you're going to school and you've got a part-time job and all that
Yep.
stuff, so whenever we went into the studio to record that stuff, because we knew it was going to go on a demo to the record labels, we rehearsed like you wouldn't believe.
Yeah.
So when we arrived in the studio, there was no futzing around.
Yep.
It was get down to business and record. In fact, it was funny. The sound engineers sometimes would joke with us and say, "Man, you guys really have this stuff down." I said, "Well,
Yep.
we're 20 something year old and you're charging us $75 an hour.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah,
We don't
we're coming in practiced, okay, and we're
yeah.
going to nail this." So
Yeah.
and then other songs, we recorded, like I said, on cassette or 2 track. My brother had a four-track studio later on in Frederick, Maryland, where he used to live. And so we did a number of songs in four-track. And my brother is great technically. He's
Yep.
just really, really good with that stuff. And he had this whole setup in his house downstairs in his like his den area, family area. And we did a lot of songs there, and they came out really well. And in fact, two of the songs that are on Yesteryear, Mama No Small Wonder and We've All Grown Old, were two songs that were recorded in my brother's studio that I redid. Now, all of the songs that I redid are 24 track today
Yep.
on a digital recorder, my Tascam. I have a 2488 Neo. It's an old unit. It's been refurbished, new hard drive. It works great. I love it. And so that's how I recorded the songs.
Yep. Yep. Oh, that's great. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, wow. So I bet you're probably glad now, knowing what you know about the music industry over the years, that you're glad you actually didn't get signed to a major record label and had to sell your soul and all that other stuff. So
Well, back in the day, it was disappointing,
yeah,
because I was sending out, tapes everywhere, and I
yeah,
was working in New York and Manhattan at the time, and there were record label locations in New York, and I was walking the beat there and trying to get into, various record companies, to talk to them, publishers, and but it's a very difficult business to get into. And even when you send the tapes out, I didn't know this at the time because I was young and naive.
yeah,
Not just me, but the entire band. You would send the songs out to Capitol Records or MCA or just pick a label, and many times it came back to you unopened with a
yeah,
stamp on it that said, "We don't accept unsolicited material."
yeah,
So this was a learning process. Now you're understanding that you have to have a connection, you have to be networked,
mm-hmm,
um, you have to have some kind of,
yeah,
connection into the business, because people, kids especially when they're young and they're in bands, believe that, hey, if you just have talent and creativity and you write what you think are good songs,
yeah,
they're gonna listen,
yeah,
and that's just not the case, and in fact, they would pigeonhole you because if they did talk to you, and I did get to speak, to some publishers, and I did speak to a vice president at RCA Records back in the day. Um, they're looking for you to go with the flow.
yeah,
So they have a current template of what's popular and what people like, and so you've got to write like that.
yeah,
If you could write more like, in fact, I went to a publisher and he said to me, I really like your stuff. I really like your lyrics. He said, but I have a suggestion. And I said, well, what's that? He said, you need to write more like Meatloaf,
yeah,
the band, Meatloaf.
yeah, yeah. Oh
And
gosh,
it was, I'm like, what?
yeah,
So I said to him, I said, Meatloaf. I said, he's a flash in the pan, right?
yeah,
So it was soon after I said that I was shown the door.
yeah, yeah,
But it was cocky, but back, if you're going to be in that business, you have to have a certain amount of cockiness and confidence
yeah,
in order to push through it. But eventually what happens is, and this is what happened to us, making music and no money doesn't pay the bills.
mm,
So now you have to go out and you have to go work.
yep,
And so that's what happens. The music kind of dissipates because now, well, you have to make a living. You've got to pay bills, you get married, you have a family, and so on. And so you can't futz around with that anymore. I mean,
yeah,
I continue to play and all that stuff. I never put the guitar down, but that's how the whole early day period kind of fizzled out. But today, yeah, I'm really happy because with the technology we have today, whether it be the old Tascam I have or what people are using online, um, you can record, release your music
yeah,
independently whenever you want.
yeah,
So just
exactly.
don't expect to make any money at it because there's no
Yeah,
money in streaming. So if you can get satisfaction out of the fact that you've created something and you've released it for other people to hear, then that's a win. And that's how I approach it. I don't approach it as I'm making any money with it from streaming.
yeah,
Um, to give you an example, since 2013, it's been what now, 12 and a half years. My songs have been streamed 8.8 million times, according to my publisher and distributor, TuneCore. My royalty check for that period of time, less than $7,000.
Yep.
So your content gets streamed millions of times,
Yep.
your songs, but you get this pittance of a royalty check. So
Yep.
you really
Exactly.
can't make a living at it. They streaming killed the music industry.
Yeah.
It
Yep.
really did.
Absolutely.
So
Yeah.
anyway, so that's my music bit.
Yeah. And so, what other projects have you got coming up music wise?
Yeah, so okay, so this one's a little tough, and Amanda and I have spoken about this before I got started. So
Yeah. And only just tell us what you're comfortable with. So,
yeah,
yeah.
so my stepdaughter, Kate, passed away back in October of 2025. She was a musician and a songwriter, and she was very talented. Um, and a month before she passed away, she had sent me 17 demos that she had. And we spoke on the phone at the time, and this was early September. And she said, "Hey, Mike, I was wondering, would you like to collaborate on these songs, my demos?" And I said, "Oh, absolutely." And in fact, I was really excited about it because here I am, I'm in my 60s. Kate was, 29, and I'm thinking to myself, "Oh, this is going to be great to work with somebody who's young, has that vitality and that drive." And I just thought it would be fun.
Yep.
And I knew that between her and I, we would create some good stuff. The final product would be the songs would be great. And so I was really looking forward to it. And so, 5 weeks later, she wasn't with us anymore. Uh, and so, it's the loss is uh, is immense. And I did an interview recently. It's on my blog, and I know that you read it, and thank you so much for reading it. And I just said
Yep.
that uh, there's not a day that goes by that I don't think about her. The whole thing is so surreal because your mind still goes back to all the memories, all the conversations you had, the text messages, the jamming that we did together whenever she came out to visit. She lived in California. I'm in North Carolina. Um, all of that stuff comes flooding back.
Yep.
And it took me a long time to talk about it. And this is the first time I'm talking about it on video. Like I said, I talked about it for the first time in that interview that's on my blog. I touched on the demos. It's one of those things, Amanda, that that will never go away.
Yep.
It's something that it'll be with you for the rest of your life.
Yep.
And like I said, she was talented. She was a very good songwriter. In fact, one of the emails I sent her when she sent me the demos, I wrote her back and I listened to all of them. And, I was able to track her progression, her progress, I should say, over time as a musician, as a songwriter. When I got the demos, I just said, wow. I mean, wow, she had come such a long way and they were, the songs were good. And I said to her, I said, the songs are really good. I said, the lyrics are excellent. And she says, thank you, Mike. She says, I just love to write, and so she had a way with words. So the lyrics were, I shouldn't say were, but they are very, very good. So anyway, that's my project. My goal is to take 10 of those 17 songs, the 17 demos. If I can do more, I will. I've given myself a year to do it. So I'm hoping, and I'll get it done because I'm committed to my commitment to Kate and to honor her memory, to have those 10 songs done by March of 2027
Yep.
and to release them. And I'm thinking in terms of even cutting vinyl uh, to have the physical medium
Yep.
along with CDs and streaming and all that stuff. So that's the project. Before Kate died, I was going to do Yesteryear Part Two, but I shelved that. I put it on the back burner because this is more important. So
Yep.
again, not easy to talk about. It's very difficult to talk about. And that's it. So that's the project I'm working on now.
Yep. Yep. Yes, it is a very difficult subject, and our hearts go out to you, and we're sending you prayers and yeah, some healing and love. But it's something that, as you say, is always going to be with you.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah. So yeah,
It makes you, it also reorients your priorities.
yeah, yeah, absolutely.
What you thought was important before that moment
Yeah,
is no longer important.
yeah,
It's really one of those moments in time where you become extremely introspective
mm,
and you evaluate life.
yeah, yeah, exactly. Has the fact that you have a very strong spiritual sort of background, like with doing your hypnotherapy and things like that, which I want to sort of get into, like segue into next. But do you think that through the process of seeing other people over the years in your practice and seeing the clients go into the space between lives and into
Right.
previous lives and things like that, although I use that term loosely, because I think time isn't linear.
Mhm.
So when we say past lives, it might not
It's
necessarily.
not this life. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. I think the new term is quantum travel now. I think that's
Okay.
what we're terming it these days, at least in soul center healing hypnosis, which is what I'm trained in, is we now tend to call it quantum travel. But do you think having that knowledge and that experience with your clients over the years has given you some comfort or help knowing that Kate is still okay? She's most likely still around or has maybe even shown herself through certain signs, things like that. Like, or do you think that's been too soon for you to process all that?
No, it has helped tremendously.
Yeah,
But I will say this, even though that's my belief system
yeah,
with reincarnation and between lives, it does not take away the connection that you have
yeah,
or had with that person.
yeah,
The emotions are very much there. They can get very raw.
yeah,
Um, it's still very, very difficult. In the back of your mind, you can logically explain that she's just moved to a different place
yeah,
and she's still around. But the missing of somebody, their physical presence in your life when they're not here anymore, especially when, you had a great relationship and you love them, is is very, very hard.
yeah,
It's like you can be taught all this stuff and you can experience all this stuff and you can know all this stuff, but that connection is what comes to the forefront
yeah,
and they're not there anymore.
yeah,
So, but this is a great question that you've asked me because I'll tell you what I did. Um, I was really hurting with this. And so I have a colleague of mine, Brenda, and she's out in North Carolina on the coast. So I told her what had happened and I said to her, look, what I'd like to do, if it's okay, if you wouldn't mind, is I'd like to come out for a session to see you. And I'd like to go into the spiritual realm and see if I can connect with Kate. And she said, absolutely. So the way we did it was I was out there for 2 days and my session was first, and then I did one for Brenda. So we swapped. And I actually did this for a number of clients as well, Amanda. I was in private practice for 12 years. I retired back in September of 2022. I did hundreds of sessions. Um, in the session that I did with Brenda, I went into the spirit world. You're in very, very deep trance. It's spiritual regression. And when you're in that altered state, you can make that connection. You can pierce the veil.
Yep.
And so I was able to connect with Kate and also with my dog Charlie, as well as my father and my stepfather. And it's very difficult for people who have never experienced this type of session to really get their arms around it and understand it. But the interaction is very, very real.
Yep.
The best way to explain it is it's like if you have a visit from somebody who's crossed over in your dreams, where nothing's abstract or weird. It's very straightforward, as if you're speaking to them like you and I are speaking right now.
Yep.
You're there, I'm here, we're having a conversation.
Yep.
So I was able to have that session, and I was able to get with Kate and my dog Charlie, and my father, and my stepdad Jack. And most of the session was with Kate and Charlie. He was just there by my side, and we just talked through stuff. And she said to me, Mike, I'm okay. Everything's okay.
Yep.
I'm good. And so we told each other that we loved each other, and it was it was a sense of closure, um, especially since I had texted her 10 days before she had passed away. And I mean, she was a little stressed about a move that she was making, but I didn't pick up on anything that was, that was going to be detrimental. And so, having this session, and Brenda, if you're listening to this, thank you so much for the session. It was uh, it was very healing
Yep.
because I was able to come out of that session and I'm like, okay, we had the discussion, she's okay, and it's a form of closure. It,
Yeah.
I could just That's the best way to explain it. Now, that doesn't mean after the session that you still don't, you know, you don't struggle
Yeah. I
with
mean,
the memories and
of
stuff like
course, you
that.
miss their physical presence.
Yes, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
one of the hardest things is I was working one of her songs. It's titled Better Days, and as I was starting to work it became almost impossible because it was her voice.
Mm-hmm.
So if I'm busy working the process, levels, fader, this, that, whatever, I'm okay. But then once what happens is you're connected back into, oh, that's her voice.
Yeah.
And then you just kind of you almost just shut down.
Yep.
And that's happened to me where I just said, you know what, I just can't do this right now.
Yep.
Um, but yeah, so to answer your question, uh, having that experience that I had with Brenda, with seeing Kate and others from my family and Charlie, doing the work that I did as a hypnotherapist for 12 years, and half of my practice, 50% of it was spiritual regression, past lives and between lives. The other 50% of it was clinical work, stop smoking, lose weight, self-confidence, public speaking, you know, uh, stop drinking alcohol. I was one of the very few hypnotherapists that would work with people who had alcohol issues.
Yep.
And I was very successful at it. I had clients that came in, and after I worked with them, that was it. They stopped drinking, so which was great.
Yep.
Um, so yeah, so it does help, but again, their physical presence not with you anymore is still very difficult.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. You mentioned about having dreams of, you know, past loved ones that have passed away and
Visits, yeah.
visits. Yeah. And I've had that happen a few times over the years. The one that stood out to me was we had a friend that passed away. He was in an accident, a motorcycle accident. And a few months after he passed away, my husband and I and our son at the time was only a toddler. And I think our daughter was a tiny baby. We were waiting for our first house to be built. So we moved into his house because he shared his house with a friend that was a fly in, fly out worker
Hmm.
that worked in the mines over in Papua New Guinea. So we actually moved into his house for a few months while our house was being built. And we were actually staying in his room. And I got up one night to go to the toilet. And when I woke up, the whole room was like, you know, when you've got that they weren't orbs, but it was just this fuzziness in the room, like all these lights and sparkles and speckles, like when you've got a TV screen that's not hitting a channel and you've got that
Right.
staticky. It felt and looked like that. I went out of the room, across the hall to the bathroom, and then it was clear. It was just, you know, dark, and I made my way through to go to the bathroom. Came back, soon as I stepped over the threshold into the bedroom, it was all that staticky again. Didn't think much of it at the time, other than, oh, this is a bit weird. Got back into bed, thought that I'd fallen asleep, but it was as if I was in that half sleep, half awake state.
Hmm.
And then there was a chair in the corner of the room. We had like a cane chair that used to be more like a clothes horse. We just throw our clothes on. But anyway, it was in the corner of the room. And I saw some movement and I sat up in bed. Now, I don't know whether because this was a long time ago. I don't know whether I physically sat up or whether it was me in my etheric or astral body sitting up. But I sat up and there was our mate sitting in the chair.
Yeah.
And we had this long conversation.
Yeah.
And the room was exactly how the room is. So in a dream state, usually there's something different. You
Oh,
know
you give
it's
me goosebumps. Oh man.
yeah, yeah. And but then the next day, I was trying to explain to my husband what had happened because for some reason I didn't think to wake him up. I was just engaged in this conversation with our mate. And then I was telling my husband the next day about it, but I couldn't recall the conversation. I knew little
Yeah.
bits and I knew the general, you know, theme of what we were talking about, but it had all gone. And that stayed with me. That was probably the most real and vivid experience like that. But I've had visits from my mum when she passed away and things like that, but they were more in the dream state.
Yes.
I still knew I connected with her and I woke up and I knew that was more than just a dream.
Right.
It was actually connecting with her, but it was in the dream state. Whereas this other one, it was almost like he had come to me in that room. And whether I'd physically sat up or whether it was my astral or etheric body that was engaging with him, I still to this day don't know. So, but yeah. So speaking about dreams, which are very similar to sort of the hypnotic state, when we go into dreams, what are your thoughts on dreams? Like, obviously, there's prophetic dreams that we have. Sometimes it's just the subconscious working out things that have gone on during the day. But yeah, I'd like to hear a little bit about your thoughts on the dream state.
Yeah, I think dreams come in different flavors. Like you said, sometimes I would say probably many times it's a subconscious mind. It's reconciling, it's processing through emotions and feelings that you have. Um, and it may seem abstract, but that's just how it works with the subconscious mind. It can be very abstract. Um, they could be reflections of your fears, uh, reflections of your desires, and they will manifest in dreams. Other times, when we're talking about visits, it's a direct connection to the other side. And you can have these communications, you can have these discussions, whether it's you sitting up in bed in your etheric state, um, or seeing a loved one as an apparition. Um, I mean, I personally, Amanda, I've had a lot of paranormal experiences in my life going back to when I was a kid. So I was always open to this stuff. So really nothing really surprises me. In
Yeah.
fact, I've got stories that I can tell from a hypnosis perspective that were very interesting. I don't know if we'll get into that, but I don't
Yeah.
want to
Oh,
scare people. I don't want to, yeah, I
feel
don't want to
free
scare
if you
people.
if you want to. That's all right. I'm pretty sure my audience is pretty resilient and open-minded too. So if you want to share anything of those
Yeah, maybe I'll get
experiences.
into a story or two, but
Yeah.
yeah, with dreams, I think a lot of times it's a clearinghouse. And it's trying to, like I said, reconcile and filter through your emotional state, what you're feeling, your desires, your worries, your stresses, all of this stuff. Um, and other times, other times it could be is lucid dreaming. You know, when you're in a dream and you're someplace, and then this has happened to me a number of times.
Yep.
I'm dreaming, and then I know I'm dreaming,
Yeah. I've had that
and
a
but
lot too.
yeah, but I can navigate the dream. Like, oh, I'm
Yep.
going to walk down the street here,
Yeah. It's
or
like
I'm going to do this.
you can manipulate the dream and like I usually have my best flying dreams when I'm lucid dreaming. Because
Yes.
once I realize I'm dreaming and I'm fully in control of the dream, that's when I can at will do things like fly and things like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
It could be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Um, and then the visits that I have are when loved ones who've passed away come to me, and we're just talking. Like I was saying before, the situation where I had the session with Brenda, and I was able to connect with Kate. But you can also do that in the dream state. So I remember when my stepdad passed away back in April of 2020, my mother was very concerned about whether he got to heaven. Mom's very old.
Yeah.
I said, Mom, Jack is okay. And so he came to me in a visit, and I was in my mother's house, and he was sitting in his recliner, and I was sitting on the edge of the couch, and it was real as real can be. And he said to me, Michael, tell your mother I'm okay.
Yeah.
Tell her I'm all right. Everything's okay, and all of this. And so the next day I said, hey, Mom, Jack came to me in a dream at a visit, and he says he's okay, and you don't need to worry whether he got to heaven or not. He's there.
Oh,
Uh,
yeah.
and my uncles come to me, my father's come to me. In fact, even Kate came to me about 2 weeks ago. It was a very long dream. I remember that. It was one of those dreams where I was dreaming, then I had to get up to go to the bathroom. And then I went back to sleep, and the dream picked right up where I left off.
Yeah.
And it just seemed like it was one of those dreams that it was like 3 episodes,
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's what to say, what do I think about them is difficult because, like I said, they come in different flavors, they can mean different things, and all I could say is enjoy it. Um,
Yeah.
Although there are times uh, when it's not enjoyable, and I'm not even sure they're dreams, to be honest with you. But ever since I was younger, I suffered from sleep paralysis.
I've suffered that as well too. Do you get that vibrating feeling
Yeah.
as well? And I've
Hmm.
actually felt like I've lifted out of my body, but I get that
Oh, yeah.
fearful and then I slam straight back in as soon as I get
Yep.
fearful. Yeah.
I've had
Yeah.
it where I am out of my body.
Yeah.
Um, I know my physical body's still in bed, but I'm sitting up.
Yeah.
And the one thing with sleep paralysis, and I figured out how to get rid of the many times they're fearful, they're scary.
Mm.
When I was younger, going back years ago, it was scary stuff. It was almost demonic, like whispering into your ear
Yeah.
and
Or a
stuff like that.
heaviness on your
A
chest.
heaviness, or you can sense that somebody was right
Right there.
near your
Yeah.
face, right there in your face.
Yeah.
And the way I broke that was I realized that those entities, because they, in my opinion, they are entities that are coming through. You're in some place, some space that where they're there,
Yep.
is to not have the fear,
Yep.
because the fear is what they really get off on.
Yeah.
So once you get to the point where you're like, okay, I see what's going on here, so I'm not going to have the fear, and you tell them to take a hike and get lost, that worked for me.
Yep.
I haven't had one of those types of sleep paralysis situations in a very, very long time. But
Yep.
sleep paralysis is weird because you can't move your body, you can see, and there are times when the room looks exactly the way it is. There's no change. And I've had sleep paralysis where I'm sitting there and I'm in my room, but it's decorated differently.
Yeah.
There's a picture on the wall that's not there in my current space when I wake up, or the curtains are different,
Yep.
you know? So there's little things like that. So it's very, very it's very strange stuff.
Yep.
But that's
Do you,
part of, with me, it's part of me knowing that there's more to this existence
yeah. Yeah.
than they'd like to teach us.
Yeah. So when there is a slight change, because I've had the same thing, I've woken
Hmm.
up and it's, or I actually have come out of my body. I said before that I get that vibration feeling and I get out a little bit and slam back in, but I have had a couple of instances where I have actually got out of my body. There was once where I somehow peeled. It felt like I was peeling out of my body, and then I ended up falling onto the floor, but my physical body was in the bed.
Yes.
And I digress here. I'll get back to the change in the room. Um, but I managed to get up. It took me ages to get up. I felt like it was a big effort to try and get myself
Yeah.
up off the floor, and I finally did and got upright. And I was going to go out the door and onto the landing and go down the stairs, but something told me, no, turn around and have a look at your body, which normally you're not
Hmm.
supposed to do. Well, I say not supposed to, but people say that you shouldn't do that. Um, but for some reason, I went over and I actually bent over and looked at my physical body lying in the bed, and I was lying on my side because I'm a side sleeper. And as I looked at my body, my physical body's eyes opened and looked back at my etheric body. But I didn't at the time. When I thought about it later, when I actually woke up, um, I thought, how freaky. But at the time it was happening, it didn't freak me out at all. But I took that as a sign for me, maybe that I need to have a look at myself, or that there's some mirroring or something going on, or yeah. But it didn't freak me out when I was in the situation. But when I thought about it later, I thought, oh my God, how freaky is that?
Yeah.
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 But yeah,
I've had
talking,
that.
oh wow, that's
I
amazing.
mean,
Yeah.
I didn't mean to interrupt you. I mean,
Yeah, no, no, that's all right.
the difficulty that you have maneuvering and moving when your physical body's there and you're like, okay, I'm getting out of the bed now. And then you realize who's getting out of the bed now because,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and the change in the room, like normally it's exactly the same, but I've noticed a couple of times there's been things that are just slightly different. So I wonder whether that is because we're tapping into an alternate reality. And this could go down a whole other trajectory. So it might be subject for another discussion. But the whole, whether we're on one particular timeline or whether there's multiverses and multi dimensions, and you've got, unlimited yous in all different other time space continuums
Right.
living the same life but slightly differently, or like that sliding doors movie, and where
Hmm.
you come to a fork in the road and you have to make a decision. There could be one version of you that goes down that path and another version that goes down that path and things like that. So yeah, and it brings to mind that you're in another sort of reality that's a parallel to what is your normal, waking reality.
That's what I think it is. I think that we bleed into a different reality.
Yep,
And I'm talking specifically when you're in bed and the room is different. And like I said, it's with me, it wasn't like different. There were subtle changes. Like I said, the picture on the wall that's not there, the curtains on the window that are not there, because I have blinds in my bedroom. So when I look to the right and I see, well, the blinds are there, but also curtains, I'm like, what's that?
yep,
Yeah, that's not how my house is decorated. I've had a number of situations where you're talking about coming out of your body, and I remember this one time I had sat up again. It wasn't my physical body that sat up, uh, and to my left there was this woman, and she was illuminated. She was all white, and she was very beautiful. And I remember I was looking at her, and I said, "Well, who are you?" And she just smiled, and then she reached her hand out to me, and she wanted me to take her hand. And I didn't take her hand because I said to her, I'm not going to take your hand unless you tell me who you are." And then she smiled and she pulled back and then she just disappeared.
yep.
There was another time, boy, your audience is going to think this guy he's crazy. Um,
Oh, no, that's all right. I'm pretty much in the same boat there. I've had so
uh,
many paranormal things happen since a child as well.
oh, I've had a
Yep,
lot. And
yep,
there was a time, this is going back a number of years ago too, and it's actually in this house, and I had sleep paralysis. And sometimes to get out of sleep paralysis is very difficult. What I try to do is you try to move an extremities, you try to move your legs, your arms, you can break it,
yep,
and then you come back. And when I come back, what happens is I'm exhausted
yeah,
because the struggle to get out of the sleep paralysis takes a lot of energy.
yep,
And I remember I had this one particular sleep paralysis, and it was very difficult to get out of, but I did. You know, by the way, they say if you just fall back to sleep, you're fine. But for some reason, that's not your inclination when you're in it. You want to
yep,
try to get out of it, break it.
yep,
So I remember after I broke it, I sat up and I sat on the edge of the bed and I was just had my hands like this and I was like, oh. And there was a disembodied voice to my left to the ceiling and it said, I wish I could have helped you some more. And it was very, very weird. And it was a woman's voice. And I want to say it was wispy, but it wasn't that wispy. And I remember I was so exhausted that after she had said that, I didn't react right away. It wasn't until a little bit later, maybe a few seconds later, I'm like, wait, what? What was that?
yep,
Another time, I was in sleep paralysis, and this is, going back a while ago. And at the time, a girlfriend, and it was like 2 a.m. in the morning, and I was in sleep paralysis, and I got myself out of it, and I was lying there in bed, but she was sitting up in bed, and her eyes were like half dollars. They were wide open, and
mm-hmm,
she had this look of she was perplexed, almost like fear. So I said, "Are you okay?" She goes, "You didn't see that?" I said, "No, what are you talking about?" She said there was this extreme intense light that came through the bedroom window. And I had these thick blinds in the bedroom because you want to so you could make the room dark.
yep,
She said it blasted right through those blinds and lit up the room like a torch.
yep,
Amanda, I knew nothing of it because it happened evidently when I was still in sleep paralysis And when I came out of the sleep paralysis, lights out.
Yep.
But the look, the look on her face was one of like, what is going on here?
Yeah.
So, and I know it rattled her. Um, for me, it was just like another day in the life of Mike and some paranormal occurrence that, I've experienced for most of my life. I mean, it doesn't happen all the time, but I've had enough where uh, it doesn't really rattle me.
Yeah. Yep.
You kind of get used to it after a while.
Yeah.
So anyway, I have lots of stories, but I don't want to eat up.
No, no, that's all right. So, did you want to, while we're on the stories, talk about some of the experiences that you mentioned before during your hypnotherapy career?
Yeah, I'll tell you one. So when people think that things like spirit attachments are not real, I can tell you that they are real.
Yeah.
And attachments, when I was doing my hypnosis work, I was, still I do a lot of energy work. I can see auras. So if you have a life where you have a lot of vices, addictions, whether it be drugs, alcohol, pornography, whatever it may be, what happens is your aura is not healthy. So an unhealthy aura is a kind of gray, and it sits very low above the head, the shoulders. Somebody who is healthy mentally, physically, emotionally, the aura radiates out. And it could be like a lime green, yellow, white, blue type of color. So if you have a life where it's not healthy, my suggestion is I strongly suggest that you get things cleaned up. Now, to tell you the story, what happened was um, there was a lady who came in to see me, and she was struggling with stress and anxiousness and just feeling down. And so there's this technique in hypnosis called parts therapy. So what parts therapy is, there's a part of you when you come in for a hypnosis session. I'll just use a really simple scenario. If you come in because you want to quit smoking, there's a part of you that wants to be healthy, and there's a part of you that wants to smoke.
Yep.
Very basic, right? That's how it works.
Yep.
When you come in, the part that wants to stop smoking, wants to be healthy, is driving that motivation for you to stop smoking. Parts therapy is very, very effective when you're doing a hypnosis session in hypnotherapy because it allows the client to be able to call those parts out and then to reconcile what's got to get done in order to move in a positive direction.
Yep.
So there's a process of negotiation too that takes place that the practitioner, which would be me, facilitates that negotiation and that discussion between the two parts to get things where they need to be from a healthy perspective. So if with this one particular lady, she must have been around, I want to say around 40. And she had some struggles in life. And so I'm doing the parts therapy. And as I'm doing it, I call the parts out, I ask the parts to come forth. And this one part is talking to me, but it doesn't sound like her. And I'm thinking, like I said, I was in practice for 12 years. I've seen everything.
Yep.
Um, and so as she's speaking, I let her talk. And then I said, I'll just call the girl Sally. I said, "You're not Sally, are you?" And the part comes out and says, "No, I'm not." I said, "Okay." I said, "Well, who are you?" And the part comes back and says, "I'm her mother." So I said, "Okay." I said, "Well, tell me about what's going on here. Why are you connected with Sally? What's the deal here?" So the mother starts to tell me that Sally's problems, her issues, stem from when she was younger, when her mother was alive, and her mother, fesses up during the session that she wasn't always there for her daughter. She wasn't the best mom. She could have done a much better job. And so she said to me that I'm with her now to try and correct my wrongs. So I'm trying to help her. But the problem is she wasn't helping her. She was getting in the way
Yep.
because it's interference.
Yep.
Sally really can't be herself because her mother's energy, her mother's spirit or whatever is still connected in. And even though she has good intentions, she's getting in the way.
Yep.
So I explained this to her mother. And I said, look, I said, I know you're trying to do a good thing here. I said, but it's it's hurting more than it's helping. It's hurting a lot more than it's helping. And I said, I'm going to have a suggestion for you. I said, let's go to the light. Let's go to the light and let's let Sally live her life, her life.
Yep.
And so the mother says, okay. So at that moment, when the mother decided to go to the light, Sally was in the chair and her whole body, and she was in deep trance, I should say this, her
Yep.
whole body in the recliner arched up and she went, ah, like this. And you could see something happened, something very significant happened.
Yep.
So the mother leaves. Sally's in the chair. She's still in trance. And so now I'm able to work the session directly with Sally and work with the post-hypnotic suggestions and all of that stuff. She comes out of trance, so she emerges. She had absolutely no recollection of her mother coming through and her mother having this rather lengthy discussion with me during the session.
Yep.
You know, now I didn't say anything to her. I didn't say your mother came through because I don't want to, because that could be unnerving,
Yep.
right? Because you don't know what the person's belief system is.
Yep.
It could be very scary. So, but as I'm having the post-session discussion, it's very clear to me she knows nothing about this whole dialogue that took place.
Yeah.
So I said to her, I said, how are you feeling? She goes, I feel great. She goes, I feel great. I feel so light. She goes, I can't thank you. I thank you so much for, for the session. I feel really good. So that was one. There were other, I'll just tell the one story because there were others and I don't want to eat up all the time telling old hypnosis war stories. But that's a situation where there was an attachment.
Yep.
And that attachment was trying to do good things, and it was her mother. But, really, the moral of the story is don't interfere in somebody's life,
Mm.
whether you're on the other side or you're here.
Yep.
Do not interfere with other people's lives
Yep.
because it has an effect. Now, like I said, I'm not going to go into old war stories, but that was that was a benevolent situation. But there are other times when there are attachments that are not benevolent.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I had to work a couple of those types of sessions too to get them to leave the client alone,
Yep.
to release and go away.
Yes.
Um, yeah, I won't tell the other stories because I mean, there's one that was, it was pretty unbelievable. You want me to tell it?
Yeah. Yeah. Go for it. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So,
Yep. As I said, my audience is pretty, as far as
well,
I know, are
I've
pretty
already I've
open-minded.
already started it, and the audience is like, Mike, you just started the
Yeah.
story. I mean, finish the story, right? So
Yeah.
this lady comes in, she wants to quit smoking, and she must have been in her late 30s. And I'm in the chair. So my hypnosis chair is here, and the client is over here. And it's only about maybe 5 feet, distance between myself and the client and the recliner. And so I get her into deep trance, and we're going to do parts therapy again because parts is very, very effective.
Is
So
that,
I call
excuse me for
out.
butting in for a minute, but is parts therapy, is that the same as internal family systems?
I'm not familiar with that term.
Oh,
Parts therapy would be like think in terms of you have you have you
yep,
and how you your belief system, how you react, how you behave. Think in terms of you're comprised of 100 pieces to a puzzle,
yep,
right? And these
yep,
different pieces, they when they're together, that's who you are
yep,
for, for better, worse, and everything in between.
yep,
So one of those pieces of the puzzle is going back to what I said before, likes to smoke
yep,
because I de-stress, it makes me relax. Yeah, but it's unhealthy. I don't care about that. I just want to
yep,
relax. That's how that part is, right? A lot of times it's very cavalier about the healthy aspects. It just wants to do what brings stress relief or makes somebody relax, even though it's unhealthy. It's like, that's somebody else's problem, not mine.
yep,
And that's how some of the parts will actually respond. Like, well, somebody else is responsible for the healthy part. I'm just responsible for making sure that they can relax and de-stress. And, cigarettes work, so we smoke.
yeah, yep,
That's basically how the dialogue goes. And then there's the other part that I mentioned before that says, "Hey, I want to be healthy.
yep,
I don't want to I don't want to smoke. I don't want to have lung cancer or, a hacking cough and stink like cigarettes all the time. So I want to get rid of that habit."
yep,
So anyway, so she comes in to stop smoking. And so I call the parts out, and the one part comes out and says, "I want to be healthy." The part that came out that smokes was dark.
mm-hmm,
And so I'm talking to this part, and what happens is the client's voice changes, right? So she's a woman in the chair, and the voice gets a little deeper. So, this is a male, dark presence or part that is interfering here. So I said, why do you do what you do with the smoking? And comes back and says, I control her. I've always controlled her, and I'm going to continue to control her. And goes on to call her some names or use terminology that I won't repeat here.
yep,
So I said, okay, look, you need to leave. You need to go. Okay. I said, and I'm actually having this conversation, and somebody might say, well, you're having this conversation with this whatever is going on here, this entity, this part, whatnot. Are you uncomfortable? It goes back to what I said before, Amanda. I had so many paranormal experiences that
yep,
this kind of thing, it didn't rattle me.
yeah,
So what it did, and I kid you not, folks, you're listening to this. I know this is going to sound crazy. What it did was, so she's sitting in the chair. She's looking straight ahead. So she's not looking at me. She's in the chair, the recliner, looking straight out. Deep trance. All of a sudden, what happens is this this being or entity lifts up out of her body, especially the facial area, and turns toward me and looks at me and says, "You need to leave."
mm-hmm,
And it was very, very dark looking. It was very, I want to say demonic looking type of
yep,
presence.
yep,
And it looked at me and I didn't even blink. I looked at it and I said, no, you're going to leave. You're going to leave her alone. And at that point, what happened was it went right back in. Now I know again, the audience, I know this sounds crazy, but I I have seen this so many times when I do hypnosis sessions, especially uh, when they're in very deep trance. I've actually had this happen. And again, this wasn't once. This was, a number of times that this happened, where the person's face will cycle through many different faces.
mm-hmm,
Men, women, kids, different races, old, young.
Yep.
and it's kind of flipping through. And that's interesting because, I thought, okay, what's going on here? Are these other lives that are basically coming through and paging through, and I'm seeing this because what happens is when you're in these trance states, there's a certain frequency and vibration that's in the room, and it actually alters the construct of the space you're in,
Yep.
and you're going to see things and you're going to experience things that under normal circumstances would never happen.
Yep.
So these are the types of things, and like I said, because I had so many paranormal experiences, this stuff didn't it really didn't phase me. So what happened was she came out of the session and she had again zero, I mean zero recollection of that whole part of the session,
Yep.
which by the way was a majority of the session.
Yep.
And when she came out, I said, how do you feel? Just take your time. You're coming back. Just get yourself acclimated. Get yourself grounded. She said, I feel good. I feel good.
Yep.
You know? So the moral of the story is that, as I said before, existence, the reality is not what most people are told and
Yep.
what most people believe.
Yep.
There are layers to it, for lack of a better way to describe it, that are there.
Yep.
And people who are who are grounded very, spiritually, uh, I find are in a much better place when it comes to these types of things.
Yep.
If they're grounded and doing healthy things, they have a a very positive spiritual belief system. They're good people, you know. What I find, like I said, when these types of things happen, where you have these parts of these entities that emerge, it typically happens, from my experience is it happens when the person is engaged in stuff that's not healthy.
Yep.
And so because all these entities need is a sliver of an opening
Mm-hmm.
to kind of like shimmy their way in.
Yep.
And so um, people who have auras, like I said, gray auras that are low, they're very low off the top of the head. They're not radiating those bright colors I mentioned before. They're candidates for this type of thing to go on.
Yep.
Um,
Yep.
so I don't know,
Well, I've got a quite a bit to unpack with that. So, because as you know, I've studied soul center healing hypnosis,
yes,
and um, the difference with that and the QHHT is that Laura Whitworth, the founder of Soul Center Hypnosis, had done other modalities in the hypnotherapy fields, but she was trained in the clinical field as well as you were. But they kept saying in those arenas, they would say, oh, no, there's no such thing as entities. That's just a part, like an internal family system, which is like parts therapy. Internal family systems are basically um, when you've got like an inner child voice that sort of wants to be placated, and then you might have
yeah,
a protector or a warrior that is batting for you, sort of thing, and then there's the more vulnerable little scared person sitting in the so you've got all these different parts to the
that would be the
personality.
parts. Yeah.
Yes,
Hmm.
yeah. So you've got that, and that it is valid. But Laura found through her practice over the years that there were these entities, and
Yeah.
the other modalities of the in the hypnotherapy pool would say, oh, no, 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 like the Dolores Cannon type people that are trained under her would not acknowledge. I think it's changing now, but at the time they wouldn't acknowledge that there were actual attachments. So I really liked training with Laura because at the front end of the session, we work on clearing the client of these attachments, because until you can get rid of the attachments, you don't know whether you're talking to the person's higher
That's right.
self or whether it is the attachment talking. And more often than not, it's the attachment, which can even come through in the past life part of
Yeah.
the session. Yeah. So we do the clearing, and again, it's comes in through addictions, also trauma as well, traumatic experiences, accidents, illness, depression. Things like
Hmm.
that is when we can open ourselves up for these attachments. I don't know whether you've heard of Jerry Marzinski. He was
No.
a well, he's still around. He was a psychotherapist, and he
Okay.
worked in prisons and in mental asylums and institutions. And he actually also became aware of these attachments and these demonic entities. And he had to be very careful because he would have been, like had his license taken away. But he talks about, I'll see if I can find the actual, well, he's done a few interviews, but I'll send you a link at some stage so you can have a look at
Okay.
his, yeah. But he talks about the same thing. There was one time where he was working with a client or a patient rather, and this voice boomed at him and said, "You have no right to interfere with our way of life."
Hmm.
And they'd say things like, "This one is mine," and
Yep.
things like that. And I've come across that through doing soul center healing hypnosis as well, that they almost feel they've got a right to control that person. And so what we do is we tell them that it's a free will universe and you do not have a right to be there. And despite what your overlords have told you, you have no right to be
Right.
trying to control this person. Yeah, yeah,
I had one client. You're on a thread here. Just reminded me. A young girl. She was in her 20s. She had one of these parts or entities that said that they have been with her through multiple lives.
yeah. I've
So,
heard of that too. Yep,
it's not just this life.
yep,
And th this one was obstinate. It was very, very difficult. I mean, this was one where I was getting very, wouldn't express it outwardly, but internally I was getting very angry because it was very, very, boy, oh boy. I kept
yep,
thinking to myself, boy, if I can grab you by the neck, I would. You know?
yeah,
But
yep,
but because it was the way it was speaking and it was very condescending toward her. Um, yeah, so what you like so the difference is with parts, right? If it's parts, it's just a part of you.
yep,
The way you know is because the part speaks. The part is not nasty. The part is, I mean, it could be a little maybe it might have a little bit of an attitude, but it's the person.
yeah,
It's the person, right? It's
yep,
the person could be maybe have a little bit of an attitude or whatever. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about something that emerges that is clearly dark,
yes,
clearly something that shouldn't be attached to this individual.
yep,
That's what I'm referring to. And like I said, for people who would say, well, who are doing, let's say, hypnosis work or whatnot, and saying, I don't think that stuff exists. Well, I don't want to sound cavalier or anything, but my attitude would be that I'm going to question what your hypnosis sessions are like.
yeah,
Because any hypnotherapist who does the work, and I've had discussions with colleagues of mine about this topic, they have all said, and I'm talking about colleagues of mine that, like I said, they're doing the work. They have all come across this.
yes, yep,
So even Brenda, right? I mentioned I remember going back a number of years ago and I was telling her about, one of the sessions I just explained to you in the audience. And I said, do you get this kind of stuff? Or, am I just a lucky guy? Right? She said, no. She said, I get them too.
yeah, yep,
So, it's not something that's spoken about a lot. And And I don't want people to sit there and go, "Oh, hypnosis is bad because of this." No, it's hypnosis can be extremely beneficial
Yes.
to help with these types of things, and hypnosis is very beneficial to help you to make positive change in your life.
Yep.
So I'm bringing these things up as part of like a discussion about how reality is not exactly how we've been told, and there's a paranormal aspect to reality.
Yes.
Okay, and there's different dimensions and there's different layers and all of this stuff. And these are things that I've experienced. So I'm talking within that realm. But if somebody comes in and they want to improve their life with hypnosis because they want to stop drinking, they want to stop smoking, they want to lose weight, they want more self-confidence, they want to be a better public speaker, they want to de-stress, none of this stuff is going to, pop up like this. I mean, the one
Yep.
lady came in with the smoking and stuff like that, but 99.9% of the time, that's not going to be experienced in the room.
Yep.
I just want to be clear about that because I
Yeah.
could be a scary picture for people who are not familiar with
Yeah.
hypnosis and how the sessions work.
Yeah. One thing that I have told people too when they say how scared they would be to have a session to find that they had attachments, or even clients that have gone through the process and then later sort of said how frightened they were. I sort of explained to them, and Laura taught us this as well. She subscribes to this, is you had them anyway. You just weren't
Exactly.
you weren't aware of them. At least being aware of them and knowing that they have been removed and you've been given tools to, because we also work on rebuilding the energetic bodies and
Hmm.
cleansing and fortifying their auric field and things like that. And we give them tools to take away with so that they can continue to do that for themselves, because it's like house cleaning. You have to be on top of it all the time. Otherwise, you're just going to walk out there and open yourself up for more things to come in unless you're
Right.
willing to do the work. So it is up to the client to continue with this, with the self-healing. We don't have an approach that we come in and fix everything and they're always going to be fine for the rest of their life. We have
Right.
to explain that to them as well. But the fact that they have had these and not been aware, but now they've become aware, having that awareness is
Yes.
healing in itself. Then removing them, then giving them the tools to remain attachment free, and how to go about that and how to keep your vibration higher. And I know it all sounds woo woo, and a lot of people think, oh, it's all new agey, but it's been scientifically proven even that, like attracts like. And if you have a higher vibration, you're not in their field of
Right.
vision, or
Right.
they've got no way of getting in because you're in two totally different states or realms or areas or two different channels. But if you have a lower vibration, then you're bringing yourself down and opening yourself up to where these entities reside. So,
That's the addictions, right? So,
yeah,
I mean, I don't want to, I'm just saying, I'll phrase it this way. Having addictions, like I said, opens the door. So if you're not healthy mentally, emotionally, and physically, okay, and you're struggling, part part of the reason why you might be struggling is because somebody's housed under your roof that shouldn't be there.
yeah,
And it
yeah,
doesn't happen all the time. So I'm not saying that's there's an attachment because you're an alcoholic. I'm just saying that it can happen. And I've had situations like you, Amanda, where I have run into them. I have experienced it. I have worked those types of sessions.
yeah,
And it's not a figment of my imagination. These things are there. So, and like you said, if you want to just put your head in the sand like an ostrich and say, well, I don't want to know about it. Well, like you said, you might not want to know about it, but it's still there.
yeah, yeah,
It's not going to go away if you don't do the work to kick it out of your house,
yeah,
you know?
yeah,
So, and
exactly.
it's not new agey to think in terms of being healthy.
Yeah.
That's how
Yep.
I look at it. Just do healthy things. Take care of yourself.
Yep.
Spiritually, physically, emotionally, mentally. Do those things.
Yep. Yep. And also, I wrote some notes before when you were talking. You mentioned the light because we also, in SCHH, um, we help entities go into the light, especially disincarnate. We deal with the demonics a little bit differently because most of them don't want to recapitulate and go back to source. So they're sort of dealt with differently. But if it's a disincarnate being, like for instance, a relative or even someone
Mm.
that's unknown to the person that just for whatever reason it was attracted to that person and attaches, we help them to, move into the light and then to continue their journey. But you often hear in certain circles these days about the false light. So what are your thoughts on the false light? And because a lot of people are now saying, don't go to the light, it's a trap. You'll just get back into that reincarnation loop. And so what are your thoughts on that?
The light is the light.
Yep,
Okay, there is no false light. Um, I I facilitated hundreds of past life and between lives sessions, and there is a definitive process as to how it all works when you pass away. Okay, so my issue with people who say these things, also the another popular one is that Earth is a soul trap. Okay, it's not a soul trap.
yep,
You have to understand that this is my take on it. Okay, people, folks, just take it for what it's worth. If it resonates with you, great. If it doesn't, Earth is a school. We come here to learn. It's soul development. It's a very, very difficult school. It's very challenging. And the reason why souls come here is for that very reason, because you go through this very challenging, difficult school, your soul learns a lot. It enriches the soul. When you pass away, you're going to hit the light. Okay. Now the light can come in different ways. It could be uh, a bright light that's right in front of you. It could be a light that's off in the distance. Some people will travel through a tunnel. Others don't go through a tunnel. Others basically make their way right through, through the space, time and space. They just rocket north.
yep,
Um, so I would like to know from the people who say that don't go to the light, there's a false light. See, this to me, that's a very human, physical world mentality. How do you know that? What is your basis for presenting that as something that is real?
yep,
What evidence do you have that the light is false? I mean, where does this stuff come from?
mm,
When you pass away, like I said, there is a process. And it's not catch as catch can. Um, you're going to make your way, and you go up. You go up. If you're going down, you got a problem.
yeah, yeah,
You're going
yeah,
up, and you know you might find yourself initially in a void. You might find yourself someplace very scenic. You might be at a park. You might be at a lake. You might wherever. Um, what'll happen is typically is you will be met by your guide, and sometimes a family member will meet you, but most of the time your guide comes to get you. And once you meet up with your guide, then there's going to be a life review. And you're going to go through that life review and you're going to review everything that took place in your life, the good, the bad, and everything in between. And there's no judging. It's just you taking a look at everything that took place. It's all the happy times. It also includes all the maybe some of the pain you inflicted on other people.
Yep.
And you're going to experience those feelings and that emotions of, you're going to feel that other person's feelings and emotions that you put on them,
Yep.
right? So if it's good stuff, it's really good stuff. If it's stuff where you were not so good and you caused them harm, then you're going to feel the pain of that harm. So that's how I know it works. Because like I said, Amanda, I did so many sessions,
Yep.
and you can't say, well, that person spoke to that person, they told them. No, these people don't know each other,
Yep.
and the standardization of the process and what comes back and how it works, it's the same. There might be some anomalies here or there because each person experiences the session differently,
Yep.
right? When you're doing a past life and a between lives, you're in a very, very deep trance state. Somebody who's in a really, really, really deep trance state might experience something different than somebody who's in a deep trance state, but not as deep as that person.
Yeah.
Okay? So there is that dynamic. There's that flux that's there. Um, so to answer your question, I do not subscribe at all to a false light.
Mm-hmm.
I do not subscribe at all that Earth is a soul trap. See, that's a defeatist attitude when you think about it, just to begin with, because you're saying, oh, all is lost. I'm
Yep.
trapped forever. I
Yeah.
mean, why would you want to put yourself in that frame of mind? Number one.
Yep.
And I know through my experience that it's not true.
Yep.
So when you leave this place, you leave this place. It's like when the bell rings and you're in school, you walk out of the classroom. Are you still in that classroom? No, you left the classroom now.
Yep.
And I also have, explained to clients and to friends and all that stuff that the degree in which you learn the truth about this reality is the degree in which more opportunities will be open to you for your next experience as a soul.
Yep.
So if you learn a lot about how this world really works, that it is a place of lies and deception, and its main goal is to disconnect you, to keep you detached from source.
Mm-hmm.
That's its primary objective of the curriculum.
Yep.
What's it like to be separated from source, from the creator, from God? Is it a good feeling? How's your life going, not having that connection?
Yep.
So when you pass away, you're going to be working with your guides on your next learning experience. And if you had a lot of soul development because you pursued the truth and you didn't fall prey to all the deception and the lies, basically you just didn't follow the
The
herd,
the herd. I was just going
the
to say
herd,
that too. Yep.
yeah,
Yep.
right? Then when your next opportunity is presented, you might have 10 doors available to you to walk through.
Yep.
And your guides and your elders will say, okay, you've got 10 doors. Nice work. So the next the next experience is going to be now a step up, a level up
Yep.
on the staircase to ultimately not having to incarnate anymore.
Yep.
If you learn nothing or very little, what happens is when you die, you have your life review. And when it's time to have your next life experience, your next incarnation, there's going to be one door. And you're going to say, that looks like the same door I went through the last time. And your guide's going to say, you're right.
Yep.
You got to go right down the chute again. You're going to have essentially the same learning lesson, the lessons that you have to learn, the same curriculum. It might have a different flavor. It might be maybe some different circumstances or whatever, but the actual learning pieces of it, what you have to learn, is the same. So what people are calling a soul trap is really self-inflicted by the individual when they incarnate into the reality and they engage in a life where they remove their soul's hands from the steering wheel.
Yep.
Okay? So if you're not going to stay true to yourself, if you're not going to stay true to your soul, to your divine, to your spirituality, then what's going to happen is your soul is going to be put in the passenger seat, the back seat, or the trunk of the car. And ultimately what happens is now somebody else other than your soul is driving that vehicle, the vehicle being your life, your body, and what you do in your life, your interactions.
Yep.
You could take that route if you want. That's why when I look at religion, religion is nothing more, and I don't care what religion it is, it's it's a control system.
Yep.
It's a control system. And most religions want to put an intermediary between you and source, between you and the creator, you and God. You have priests, you have pastors, you have ministers, you have imams, you have rabbis. You don't need any of that.
Yep.
You don't need any of that. Just be true to yourself and make that connection between you and God,
Yep.
to the creator. So I know, I get a little animated with that stuff because with all the work that I did, and I did a lot of work over 12 years in private practice, like I said, hundreds of sessions, I know how it works
Yeah.
because I had hundreds of people reporting back to me
Yep.
the process. And not only that, but I had my own sessions and I
Yes.
experienced it for myself.
Yep.
And I experienced the exact same thing that my clients did.
Yep.
So, and I know we're going to get a lot of some hate. I don't want a lot of some hate because there are people that are very, very, very committed to things like the false light and to the soul trap. And look, my attitude is this, and my approach, if you're going to get angry with me for saying these things, it's okay. It's just we have a different way of looking at things.
Yeah.
If you want to believe in soul traps and false light, knock yourself out. That's not what I believe. That's not where I'm going. And I know that that's not how it works.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Because
Okay?
from my experience too, and it just makes sense that we're in control. It's just like you say, when we step back and let something else take control of us, then that's where we go awry. But if we knew our true power and who we really are, and the fact that we do live in a free will universe, or however you want to describe the realm or realms or reality, it's at the end of the day, we have total control of ourselves.
Yeah.
And so it's how we project ourselves as to what experiences we have. And that's not to say that it's always, roses and
No, it's not.
rainbows. Yeah. In fact, I think some of us that have had more difficult lives or experiences are probably, I wouldn't say at a higher evolution, but I do think there's varying degrees of involution and evolution. So some souls are making their way back up, some are coming down
Yes.
the devolution process before they make their way back up. So it's not to say that we're any better than another soul that's just coming down to
Right.
the densest level of um, experience, and eventually they will, and then we might cycle back around as well, because I do believe that there's that everything is cyclical. You've got the Kala Yugas and the different cycles and things like that as well. So I think it's just an ongoing, like the infinity symbol. It's just always in flux,
Yes.
and yeah, yeah. So
And you're absolutely right. It's not all roses, and that's part of the learning experience. If everything were just splendid,
yeah,
what would you learn?
yeah.
I mean, if you take, we spoke about my stepdaughter, Kate. One of the things that I had to do, I had to ask myself was, what is this about?
Mm-hmm.
What am I learning from this? You know? And I had to do a lot of deep thinking. I had to be very introspective about why.
Yeah.
Why? I mean, because you're saying this is absolutely not fair.
Yeah,
It's not right. Uh, but as I mentioned in the beginning of our talk, one of the things that it did for me was to reset my priorities.
yeah,
That's a learning experience.
yeah,
You sit back and you say, and I used to do this with my clients. I would ask them while they were in trance, even though this was a very difficult process or a traumatic event or situation, how did you become stronger because of it? How did it help
yeah,
you because of it? What did you learn about yourself that you didn't know about yourself beforehand?
yeah,
And so what that does is that elevates the whole process from being stuck and lying in a ditch to you know staying in that ditch or and just ruminating all the time to, okay, yes, there are things that I learned.
yeah,
There there are things in my life that I changed for the better because of it.
yeah,
And I think that that's very, very important. And that's part of the lessons aspect of it. And I look, I have to work at it myself. I mean, going through everything I went through, uh, I had to force myself to maintain that thinking process because it would be easy to just fall back uh, into a place that is sad.
yeah, yeah,
And when you're in that place, what happens is uh, it's not healthy. It's just not healthy. And I'm going to say this: it takes a lot of work. I personally, for myself, and I think it's important that I talk about it from my perspective, so it doesn't seem like I'm just preaching. Amanda, I had to do a lot of work
yeah,
to process through everything.
yeah,
It meant journaling.
yes,
Um, it meant grief counseling,
yeah,
right? So I had to go through this process, and I'm still going through this process.
yeah,
Right. Again, I don't want to I get sad again, but yeah, so the false light and the soul trap. No.
yeah, yeah. That's the way I look at it too. But yeah, as I say, there seems to have been an uptick in, that narrative being pushed in the last few years. But I think that's also part of the dark agenda, to keep people disconnected. Yeah,
Yeah, it's all part of also, I think, it's what's going on in the world. The world is chaotic.
yeah,
So some people's inclination is to get so balled up and so confused and so invested in the world being chaotic, which it is, and by design, by the way,
yeah,
uh, that everything is chaotic. Even the afterlife can't be
yeah,
trusted.
yeah,
The afterlife is not this life.
yeah,
It's a different realm. It's a different realm of existence.
yes, yeah.
So,
And I've looked at a lot of the uh, near-death experiencer
yeah,
interviews and things, and they all pretty much say the same thing. There might be varying different things, as you say, but they all come back pretty much with a much broader view of life, different priorities in life. They often come back with heightened abilities, which we all have, but I think it's just suppressed because of the way we live our lives and the fact that a lot of us just are in automatic pilot and we don't tap into our true potential. Whereas people that have experienced the other side and come back to this particular incarnation to tell the tale, they have, for whatever reason, been able to open themselves up to their higher potentials.
Yeah.
So, yeah, yeah. But we could talk about this for hours, and time's ticking away. I really appreciate the time that you've given today, Mike.
Oh,
So,
Amanda, I felt like I just talked and talked and talked on you.
no, no, it was great. It was awesome. Yeah. And yeah, but we'll have to wind up soon because I've actually
Okay.
yeah, I've got to head out a little bit later. It's my granddaughter's what's it called? The cross country event
Okay.
today at school. Yeah, so I'm going to head to the school.
That's important. That's a priority.
Yes. Yeah, but I really thank you for the time that we've had here today, and that you opening up, and also being in such a vulnerable place at the moment, and we're all sending you lots of love and healing prayers and things like that for you and your family to get through this very difficult stage at the moment. So, but yeah, so if people want to get your new album, where do they go again? Just for people that might have forgotten.
Well, you can go to my music website. The URL is laboroflovemusic.com.
Yep,
That's all of my music. It's none of my Sage Quay stuff. It's just my music. I have two separate websites, Sage Quay, which you
yep,
can find my music there too. But
yep,
laboroflovemusic.com is dedicated to my music. And my main platforms to listen to the music would be SoundCloud, Bandcamp, Reverb Nation,
yep,
um, SoundClick. I'm missing one, but it's all there
yep.
on the website.
And
Yeah.
just for us Aussies, Labor, you spell it Labor, no
Yes,
U.
Labor
Yeah, because we
of,
have the U in there for some reason, the old English way of spelling
yeah,
it. Yeah,
Labor
yeah,
of,
of love.
right,
Yeah, music.com. Yeah,
music.com. And
I'll leave.
I'll send you the links.
Yeah, okay, cool. And I'll drop the links in the description box underneath. So I'm not
Okay,
sure when I'll get this up to whether I'll get it up later today when I get back from the cross country, or whether it'll be in the next couple of days.
it's fine.
But I'll let you know anyway. And yeah, we can go from there. But again, thank you so much for today. And just hang in there for a minute so we can say our goodbyes. So thanks
Okay.
everyone for tuning in to today's episode, which was number 18 in Caravan of Consciousness. And yeah, just sending out healing and love for everyone at this difficult time in the world, because it is chaos out there. But we need to just step out of the fray and take time to walk barefoot on the grass and just appreciate the birds and nature, and you know, keeping ourselves healthy and grounded is really important, particularly at this time. All right, thanks everyone for tuning in, and I'll catch you next time.